Now, as triathletes, we are often searching for that magical or elusive spare time to squeeze our training into our busy lives. But no matter how hard we try, this can often feel like trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. But this is where commuting can come into its own, because with the right plan of attack, you can squeeze in some sneaky interval training, or indeed just get really nice, easy base mileage as well. So today, I'm going to talk about some tips and tricks for including a bike and run commute to work. Now, planning your commute is key. You need to have a really good idea of where you're going to go to get yourself to work. Ideally picking bike paths much like this and avoiding those busy roads which have all that congestion that we definitely don't want to be near. As for the bike that we're going to do in this commute, definitely don't have your fancy TT or road bike. Just a nice, simple, even something like a fixed gear or single speed bike would do the trick perfectly. And as for that bike, make sure it's in really good working order, have a thorough service on it, change things like brakes and chains regularly because you're going to need to make sure they're not getting worn out. Have a very comfortable saddle because you are going to be spending quite a bit of time in that. And finally, make sure you know how to fix a flat, because inevitably this always happens at the most inopportune time. So just have simple spares, tires, levers, and spare tubes, even maybe something like a CO2 canister too. Now, if you're a little bit more hardcore, you can definitely find ways to factor in a workout into your weekly commute. For example, you can reduce the air pressure in your tires to create more rolling resistance. That makes it harder. You can have a heavier bike. That makes it harder. In fact, I have a friend who used to add sand to his water bottles to do just that. But if you want to find, say, a quiet road or a bike path such as these, you could actually get a short workout in too. Things like 10 to 20 second short bursts are excellent ways to get some training in. Now, if you're a dedicated commuter and you're doing this ride up to 5 days a week, then it is a nice idea to think about mixing up the routine that you have to get into work. Now, for example, on Mondays and Wednesdays, you could decide to just take it nice and cruisy and spin into work as easy as you feel. Tuesdays and Thursdays, well, that could be an option for those efforts that I was just talking about. Pick landmarks, for example, say lampposts or from one junction to an X, and vary the length of those efforts and sprints that you could incorporate. And then on Friday, well, you could just decide to do a little bit extra mileage, tack on an extra route on the way home, and that's just an extra bit of base endurance too. Now, perhaps biking to work isn't going to be feasible for you, or maybe you actually just prefer the notion of running your way into work. But there are a few things to bear in mind when we're doing this commute by foot. Now, firstly, what it allows us to do is save some money. Secondly, it allows us to avoid that sardine-esque type crush of public transport. Thirdly, it means we're not sitting in one of those frustratingly awful traffic jams. But finally, what it does allow us to do is free up some of our time, because we're not using it all for training, and lo and behold, we could use it for other hobbies that aren't exercise, which, when I think about it, I'm not sure what those are. Now, there are 3 options for your run commute. You can do it in the morning, you can do it in the evening, or of course, you can do both ways. Now, clearly, there are no bad choices here, but it is a nice way to set yourself up for the day with the morning commute. So if you have opted for this morning commute, you can get yourself into work having blown all the cobwebs away already, and happy, dare I say smug even, in the knowledge that you're going to have all of your training for the day ahead already. However, if you do decide to commute home in the evening too, well, you can clear all those workday stresses away out of your system and enjoy your evening ahead without that dark cloud of training looming over you. Now, if we're going to give this run commute a proper go, then there's a few things that we need to think about before we get started. And top of that list is our gear. Now, to carry all our gear, we need to have a nice lightweight rucksack, because there's nothing worse than a big cumbersome backpack bouncing around on your back when you're trying to run. So something like this that's nice and lightweight, usually it's got some chest and waist straps to snug everything up to stop it bouncing around, is ideal. And what I like to do is try and make sure that that's nice and small, because if you're anything like me, as soon as you've got space, you're more than likely going to fill it, and that just gets really heavy. So when you're planning ahead for your work week, it's a good idea to try and have a wardrobe plan in effect, because you don't want to be carrying around heavy things in this small lightweight rucksack that you're packing on your back. So heavy things like shoes, trousers, even your shirts, they can all stay at work and keep the weight down in this rucksack. Meaning in further commutes through the week, you can just take things like a spare change of underwear and maybe a change of shirt further down the line. Now on that note, a little birdie of mine told me a couple tips for those shirts, in so much as you can use a magazine to fold it around, and you can also do the buttons up beforehand, because apparently that helps keep the shirt's shape. Although I'll be honest, I've no idea because I never wear shirts. Now hopefully you'll agree that with the right amount of planning and a positive attitude, there's definitely a way to factor your bike and or run commute into your training schedule, but most importantly for it to be a really useful benefit too. Please, if you've got any of your suggestions about how to commute to work, drop them in the comments below. We'd love to hear about those. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it the thumb up like button. Find the globe somewhere on screen to subscribe and make sure you don't miss out on any other content on the channel. And if you want to see a video that we did about some other hacks about training, you can get our 5 legal cheats down there. And if you want to see a video that we did about how to swim with paddles, you can find that here.